Look, I'll be very honest with you. I highly doubt it, especially given the terrible history of the Marines and the US mercenary envoys against Venezuelan fishermen. If we remember some past episodes, time and time again, the few attempts they made by land by US mercenaries or US military personnel to enter Venezuelan territory were quickly curbed, often by the nationals themselves. Here, I just want to remind you of one thing, folks. When we talk about militiamen in Venezuela, it's not the same as militiamen in Brazil. The militia, the Bolivarian one, is very much based on an idea brought by Engels, which begins in a text called Can Europa abrusten? Can Europe disarm? Engels, noticing the proximity of the First Imperialist War, suggested the following: instead of Europe spending more and more money that should go to the people that should go to build libraries, hospitals, and all that crap in an arms race, why don't the armies then start behaving like militias with their own citizens? What is a citizen militia formed by the citizens? Every citizen will have military training. The people will be armed, and in case of need, the people are mobilized. These people who have had military training in defense of their own territories. In other words, that's more or less what happens in Venezuela. The Venezuelan citizen will be trained, will have the weapon at their disposal, and when necessary, they are mobilized for patrolling, for the defense of their territory. So, what does that mean? It means that for the United States, Venezuela basically becomes another Vietnam in the sense that any Venezuelan citizen could potentially have military training or not, and the guy doesn't know who he's dealing with and who he's not. The United States is already involved in several wars at the same time, and things have been going badly for it. The tendency for the United States to get involved in yet another war is very small, very small. Trump has a limit to how far he will push it, even considering his domestic policy back home. Why? Because it's not as if Trump is at a moment of great escalation and domestic approval. We've been through massive protests in the United States. We haven't seen anything similar in Brazil because of the police genocide. Americans also can't stand giving more credit to Ukraine and sending more money to Ukraine. So it's hard to imagine that you're going to mobilize a third. Focus of war that, if it develops, will basically be a trench war here, folks. We are talking here about another Vietnam. We are talking about a war very analogous to the First World War, where you have to enter the territory, you have to advance. It's a closed territory, much of it covered by woods, by the Amazon rainforest. It's not as simple as, oh, I'm going to fly over the city and launch an attack. Maduro will run away, because it's not. It's not. The situation in Venezuela is much more complex. The situation in Venezuela is much more complex. So, to be very honest, I think it's very unlikely that the United States will move beyond its rhetoric and move towards a physical occupation. So much so that the ships are not even in the territorial waters of any country. They will be in nearby international waters. In other words, this is a threat, not an execution. Why? Because if he takes the next step, then all hell breaks loose in a different way. So it's one thing to make a threat and another to actually carry it out. I think it's unlikely. Also, because Trump is very wavering in his rhetoric. Trump sometimes acts like a Siberian husky. A light shines, he loses focus, and looks at something else. So, in this last month, we've had Brazil, we've had Mexico, we've had Venezuela. In 2 weeks, man, something will happen in Iran, something will happen somewhere else, and he'll go from place to place, shouting a lot and biting very little. The dog barks more than it bites.